GMGP, because it's morning out there for somebody somewhere. Welcome back to the station. Welcome back to the channel. Y'all know what it is. Your boy Ray G. You can find me on X at Ray GQue. It's Thursdays, baby. Trinity Talk Thursdays. We're talking all things wide receiver, opportunity, utilization. What are these wide receivers doing individually inside their offenses to help us score fantasy points for our respective teams? We got a lot of players that I want to dive into today. Pop Douglas, old-ass wide receivers, Keenan Allen and Adam Thielen, Davante Adams, DeVonta Smith, Michael Pittman Jr., Brandon Aiyuk, the 2022 wide receiver class, Adam Thielen, Nico Collins, Dell, and more. We got a bunch of players that I want to dive into and some new additions to the Trinity Tracker on the website, destinationdevy.com. Remember, Trinity Score, all the things that these wide receivers are doing, isolated and independent from anybody else on their offense, to see if they're actually doing the things that matter for us to score some fantasy points. That is what Trinity Score is. But we've got a lot to dive into, a lot to talk about. So let's just get right into it. As always, we take a look at just the overall points per game versus Trinity, and just to see, what are things looking like after week 10. And you just brief snapshot, you see Tyreek Hill and A.J. Brown still at the top of the Trinity Tracker, what they're doing to score them fantasy points. CeeDee Lamb and Amon-Ra St. Brown working their way up the board as well. Keenan Allen, we'll talk about old man Keenan Allen. Stephon Diggs, I know it's looking a little bleak right now with Josh Allen playing bad, but he's still doing the things that we should be excited about. You got Jamar Chase up there, Puka Nacua, DJ Moore, Brandon Aiyuk. This gross kind of cluster of old wide receivers we'll talk about, and you work your way down the board. You see some A.T. Perry and what he did last week with Michael Thomas kind of tripping. You got guys like Jalen Guyton and Cortland Sutton kind of jammed in here into the middle. So we've got a lot to dive into on the show, and really want to start this thing out talking about one of the new features and new tabs on the Trinity Tracker, and that is the weekly comparison plot. And I think this is a very important tab that JB added to this tool, this weekly comparison plot right here. And what this will allow you to do is track these wide receivers week to week, how they're doing, how they're operating, how they're playing. And I wanted to start this out talking about Demario Douglas. Really like me some young Pop Douglas playing well for the New England Patriots, getting some opportunity. But what does that truly look like? What does that truly look like from a weekly perspective with Pop Douglas? So let's pull that up real quick. And this is what I want to highlight. I very much am into the stock market. I mean, I monitor it. I manage my own 401k. And one of the things that you learn in the market is for stocks that you want to go long, or you want to bet that they're going to perform and make you money, or vice versa, that they're going to go down and make you money the opposite direction, tanking. You're looking for higher lows and higher highs if you want to go long or buy a player. And right here, what you can see with Pop Douglas from week 1, and this is the weeks 1 through 10, sort of tracks where his Trinity Score was each week. And this is the snapshot. So you see those first 3 weeks, pretty low Trinity Score. You see that right in between 4 and 5. But then he got a little bit of a boost right there in week 4. Jumped up a little bit, made a new high for Pop Douglas. But then the very next week, he went down. He dipped down and was lower. But look at this. That low coming in week, 4, 5, was higher than the previous 3 lows. So he's made a higher low. Then the following week, after he missed a little bit of time, boom, right back up there. He makes a new high. Like this. This is a good trend for Pop Douglas. The very next 2 weeks, a little bit lower than that new high. But you know what? It's a higher low than the previous 2 clusters of lows that he's had. Then finally, last week in week 10, another new high. So one of the things that I'm trying to look for and identify when we're looking for trends and changes are higher lows and higher highs. And you could see with Demario Douglas on this one, that's exactly what you're getting. You're getting a higher low and a higher high for Pop Douglas. So again, those are some of the things that I'm looking for when I'm trying to track a trend, whether it's going in the positive direction or the negative direction. Are we seeing lower lows and lower highs? And we'll talk about that with one of the players coming up. But let's dive into some of the other cats that we want to talk about. I want to talk about this cluster and this range of old, bad wide receivers. So we looked at Pop Douglas. This is the range that I want to focus on right now. This Amari Cooper, Davante Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, DK Metcalf, Deontay Johnson cluster. And let me remove my name off the screen so we can see. these are 5 players who have very, very good Trinity scores. They're doing a lot of stuff in their respective offenses to score fantasy points. I mean, Davante Adams, 8.8. I mean, that's elite, top 6 wide receiver, top 6 overall Trinity score historically for the wide receiver position, right around there. Deontay Johnson, 8.8, 8.6. DeAndre Hopkins, 8.7. These are great scores, but there's a common theme inside this range. Metcalf, Johnson, Hopkins, Adams, Amari Cooper. What is the common theme? Y'all know it. You already know it. I shouldn't have to say it. You guys all know it. The common theme with those high Trinity scores not equating to the type of fantasy production that we want, you see them, this is Trinity versus points per game below that regression line. It's pathetic QB play. That is what is absolutely nuking these players' value right now. When you look at DeAndre Hopkins, let's just take a look at Hopkins or Deontay Johnson or DK Metcalf. You're talking about players right now. Amari Cooper, Deshaun Watson, we know he's out for the season. Bottom 10 EPA per drop back for Deshaun Watson on the season. And then you look at his QBR. QBR was 44.7. The only players with the worst QBR were Ritter, Fields, Mac Jones, Daniel Jones. And would you look at this? 4th worst so far with QBR. Kenny Pickett, 36.3. And that is impacting Deontay Johnson. Zach Wilson, we'll talk about him in a little bit. Ryan Tannehill, when he was playing QBR of 33.1, just not helping out these wide receivers. You're like, okay, well, Geno Smith isn't that bad. Well, 54.3 QBR, kind of middle of the pack, 0.03 EPA per drop back, just is not getting it done for Geno Smith. That's below Russell Wilson, Matt Stafford, Jordan Love. Anthony Richardson, for Christ's sake, is tied with Geno Smith, and he hasn't played a bunch of football this season. So one of the things that you have to keep in mind when we're looking at Trinity score and these wide receivers in general is the play of the quarterback. It is not factored in to the score because we want to look at the wide receivers and what they're doing independently of their offense, of their quarterback, but that is a major component that we cannot ignore is the quarterback play. And when you look at that dirty range of those very good wide receivers, I don't want to be dismissive of Amari or DK or Deontay. These dudes are dope. But the reality is betting on them week to week, and we talked about Deontay Johnson and him doing the things in his offense and being the alpha, all those things are true. But an important piece of context is the quarterback play. And for those teams and for those players, it is just not where it needs to be right now. So while we like what they're doing and you should be encouraged, I think the main takeaway from this cluster is I don't know how much higher they're going to get on that regression line absent more consistent quarterback play. And it's just hard to see that right now with Aiden O'Connell, with Dorian Thompson-Robinson / PJ Walker, with Geno Smith. Hopefully he can turn it around. And then Will Levis and Kenny Pickett. It's just a very tough sell to buy into and believe that those wide receivers are going to be able to turn it around with the level of quarterback play that they currently have. Now let's get into 2 older veterans with very high Trinity scores and a lot of hope and enthusiasm for these players helping us win fantasy championships down the line. And the 2 players that I want to focus on are Davante Adams and Keenan Allen. These 2 old veterans who are still out there doing the damn thing for us. You see Davante Adams currently with the Trinity score very high of 8.76 right now for Davante Adams. And then you can look at Keenan Allen and what he's doing in that LA Chargers offense. My goodness, Trinity score of 8.91, 5th highest in the database right now, giving us about 22 fantasy points per game, almost 4 points over his expected output from that position. You look at his air yard share for Keenan Allen, 38.1% air yard share, phenomenal. 30% target share, and Keenan Allen giving you 4 yards after the catch per reception. Davante Adams, on the other hand, listen, air yard share even greater than that of Keenan Allen with a 45.6% air yard share, 31% target share, not as much after the catch, 3.39 yards of yak after the catch. So you look at these numbers, Davante Adams giving us 14 fantasy points per game. He's only expected about 16.9, so 17 fantasy points, plus minus of negative almost 3, 2.8. And you're looking at Davante Adams and you're looking at Keenan Allen. And let's pull up this next chart because it really kind of shows comparisons, their weekly comparisons. That's just their Trinity score. That's what they're doing inside of their offenses. And both of these players have very similar Trinities, 8.76, 8.91. And then you look at the weekly trend of what's happening with Keenan Allen. I mean, it is, you know, he's boom, boom, boom. Everything is kind of rising up. You see Davante Adams starting to rise up a tad bit. So why on earth, if these two players have the same type of Trinity score, Davante Adams out air yarding Keenan Allen. Davante Adams, a little bit of a higher target share. Even though his yak per reception is lower, what the hell is going on inside of these offenses to where Davante Adams is only giving us 14 points and Keenan Allen 22 fantasy points? Both of these players are 30-plus-year-old wide receivers. Keenan Allen is going to be on the Chargers next year. That passing attack, they spent the first rounder on QJ. Say what you want about him. Highly doubt Los Angeles is going into next season and going to blast a ton of draft capital at another wide receiver. The wide receiver room is probably going to be Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston, Josh Palmer, and Mike Williams next season. The big difference between these two and why one is scoring more than the other, it's quite simple, and we just talked about it. It's quarterback efficiency. Even you look at Justin Herbert right now on the season, EPA per dropback, he is 8th in the NFL, only behind CJ Stroud, Hurts, Mahomes, Allen, Dak, Tua, and Brock Purdy. You look at the QBR, Justin Herbert, 5th in QBR this season. Let's just take a look at completion percentage over expected. One of the stats for quarterback that I really, really appreciate and enjoy looking at. Let me scroll over and get completion percentage over expected. And let's take a look at that. Boom, boom, filter that out. And Justin Herbert, right there, 1.13, positive green. So 15th in the NFL, opposed to what Davante Adams is working with right now. Completion percentage over expected for Aiden O'Connell, negative 5.4%. That's good for 35th in the NFL. That's behind Zach Wilson, Jordan Love, Kenny Pickett, Mac Jones, Tyson Bagent. And I'm not knocking Aiden O'Connell. He's a young quarterback. Like, what do you expect him to do like this early in his career? But that's the big difference. So while they still have similar trinities and you can still be enthusiastic about what Davante Adams can do, Aiden O'Connell just peppering him with targets like he's going to be the guy. This is a volume-based play. And if he's not getting the volume, the reality is the points and the expected points or the added points that Davante Adams can bring you probably not going to come to full pass for us. And even if he does hit that, based on what this Raiders offense is doing, everything is telling us he's only expected to get us about 17 points. So if you have no trade deadline in your dynasty leagues, which you shouldn't, there should be no trades in damn dynasty leagues, no trade deadlines in dynasty leagues. If you can acquire you a Keenan Allen, like that's probably a very good play for not only this season, but next season as well. He's operating at an efficient level. He's not slowing down. He's commanding all of the things that we want a wide receiver to do. Very good buy if you can get you some Keenan Allen because he's too old and, you know, somebody wants to trade. You've got a Drake London on your roster and you're a contending team. Can you move Drake London for Keenan Allen? Can you get a plus on top of that for that other league mate to buy the youth? Explore that if you have that opportunity. Davante Adams, Keenan Allen, give me Keenan Allen over Davante Adams rest of the season, no doubt about it. Another player I want to touch on briefly, just to kind of look at that weekly chart, is Brandon Aiyuk, wide receiver of the San Francisco 49ers. According to all the advanced data, the best quarterback in the NFL, EPA per dropback, Brock Purdy, 0.34, the only quarterback with over 0.3 EPA per dropback. That's expected points added. You look at Brock Purdy's QBR on the season, number 1 in the NFL, 76.4, higher than Mahomes, Dak, Allen, Herbert, all of those guys. I mean, Brock Purdy's doing his damn thing. I know y'all may not like him. Oh, he's not that good. He's mid. Well, the data is saying what he's doing right now is pretty damn good. His completion percentage over expected, 8th in the NFL, 4.6%. So you're looking at this chart, and Brandon Aiyuk, it's up. He's got a very high Trinity score. You look at him right now on the season, Brandon Aiyuk, let's pull up his Trinity score. We're in the Trinity data tracker, 9.91. That's elite territory, giving us 15 points per game. He's only expected 12.8, 13 fantasy points. So he's outproducing by 2.6 what he probably should. And all of our expected fantasy points and expected points per game come from PFF. You look at Brandon Aiyuk, air yard share, phenomenal, 45.6%. Target share, a little lower though, 25.5%. and he's not doing the damage after the catch. 3.79 yards after the catch per reception for Brandon Aiyuk. And you see his weekly Trinity score. I don't want to say it's going down, but he has not surpassed his week 4 Trinity high since then. It's been 6 weeks, so he's not making higher highs. And right now, he's making some lower lows. You see week 5, there goes, his low spot was week 2. Then it rises up week 5. There's a higher low, which is fine. And then there's about a lower high. And then it drops down in week 7, rises back up in week 8. We know that they were off in week 9. And then coming out in week 10, a little bit lower, 3 receptions, scored the touchdown. This is one where I'm not worried about Brandon Aiyuk, but I would say that based on the Trinity, and if you look at his overall points per game on the season and where he sits below that regression line, if he's not going to be flooded with the type of volume, like Christian McCaffrey's getting 10-plus targets, it feels like every single week out there, is maybe a situation where can you move off of a Brandon Aiyuk to a different player that may be valued a little bit lower than he is and extract some value? I'm looking at his KTC value right now, 52.75, which is higher than the player that we're going to talk about here in a second, right after this segment. Is there a possibility for you to maybe move Brandon Aiyuk for one of the players that we're about to bring up right now? And I'm talking about Michael Pittman Jr. and DeVonta Smith. So here is their, let's start with their points per game. Here goes their Trinity versus points per game on the season right now. DeVonta Smith right a tick below that regression line and right outside of that historical wide receiver 3 range. And Michael Pittman Jr., look at MPJ, a little below that regression line, but inside that tier threshold historically from 2018 to be considered a back-end wide receiver 1. This is good stuff right here. So let's go to Michael Pittman Jr. Let's start with Mr. Pittman because he just feels like one of the more underrated wide receiver assets year over year that people just don't buy into for whatever reason. But right now, his value on KTC, 47.75. So below that of Brandon Aiyuk, essentially, whether that's real value or artificial dynasty value, is telling me that you should be able to trade Brandon Aiyuk for Michael Pittman. He's scoring us about 15.4 fantasy points per game. He's only expected 15.9, so he's doing just about what he's supposed to be doing right now. He is right on track for doing what he's supposed to be doing. And you look at his air yard share, 31%. Not great, right? We would like that to be quite a bit higher than what it is. Target share right at 29%. The yak is pretty good. He's approaching 5 yards per catch, 5 yards after the catch per reception. Pretty damn good for Michael Pittman Jr. And again, you look at him on the, that's Brandon Aiyuk, on the expected points. Like, Michael Pittman is doing just right what he's supposed to be doing. He's giving you everything that he can based on the offensive situation that he's currently in. And then we look at DeVonta Smith, who is valued significantly higher at 54.63 on KTC. Expected fantasy points per game for DeVonta Smith, 11.3. He's given us 13.3. That's 2 points over expected. Air yard share. We talked about Pittman's not being that great at 35%, whatever it was. 27.4% air yard share for DeVonta Smith. Here's the problematic thing with Smitty. The target share for DeVonta Smith, right at 20%. 19.7, and then the yak, 3 yards per catch after reception. This is one where you look at the weekly chart with these two players, and you look at what they've done throughout the season. There goes Pittman and Smith. Look at the lows for DeVonta Smith. Like, I don't even know what this is. If this were a stock, you just kind of stay away. It's volatile. It's all over the place. He's got some pretty low lows in week 3 and week 4, week 5. And then the major, massive highs aren't even, they're not even higher than Michael Pittman. Like, this is it. This is the Trinity week after week. So if you had to pick a player rest the season that's going to probably help you score maximum fantasy points, is there a way to extract value out of DeVonta Smith for a player like Michael Pittman Jr., Brandon Aiyuk from Michael Pittman Jr.? Is that something that you can do? And it's not saying that we don't like DeVonta Smith or we think DeVonta Smith's a bad player, but ultimately what's going on in this Philadelphia offense right now is it's a whole bunch of A.J. Brown, and it's going to stay a whole bunch of A.J. Brown for the foreseeable future. Listen, He's overproducing right now, and you're talking about Pittman, who is giving you exactly what he should be doing. I know where I'd rather park my money rest of the season. Pittman Jr., one of the most underrated receivers. Every year he just goes out there and gets 1,000 yards. He should be in line for a nice contract extension from the Indianapolis Colts or some other team moving forward in 2024. Let's talk about the 2022 class. Since we're there, let's talk about the 2022 class and some of the top players outside of that class that we were excited about from 2022. Got Christian Watson, Drake London, Chris Olave, George Pickens, and Garrett freaking Wilson pulled up right now. And we're going to spend some time talking about Garrett Wilson. This is a player, I believe, in the very first Trinity video that I posted for the 2023 season. I was so excited about Garrett Wilson. He was my guy. He was going to achieve Trinity this year and propel himself into that top 6 category. And Aaron Rodgers gets hurt on the first play of the game. First couple of plays of the game. Wasn't the exactly first play. But I'm looking at Garrett Wilson right now, who is currently 14th in Trinity Score in the NFL. 8.52. He's given us 14.4 fantasy points per game. He's expected 17.7. Plus minus a negative 3.1. 6,600 KTC value. His air yard share, 43%. Love it. Target share, 31%. Love it. Yak, 3.84. Could be a little better, but it's fine. He's getting targeted. He's incredible, y'all. This dude is producing and doing things in spite of his quarterback situation. Remember we were talking about the bad quarterback play? Well, there's arguably no one worse in the NFL than Zach Wilson. There are a couple, but Zach Wilson is right there. He is 5th worst in completion percentage over expected. With a minimum of 75 pass attempts. You look at his EPA per drop back, and I'll just filter from worst to best. The only player worse than him in EPA per drop back is Daniel Jones. So this is stone worse QB situation. He's second to the bottom in the NFL in QBR, only ahead of Ryan Tannehill, who's barely played this season. And despite all of that, Garrett Wilson is still out there commanding and doing it all. Y'all, he may not achieve the Trinity this year, but there ain't a damn player that I want from the 2022 class more than Garrett Wilson. As we look across the dynasty landscape at the other receivers, like, this is a guy I'm just willing to bet on because he's doing every single thing possible and still scoring us more than DeVonta Smith in a better offense. Damn near scoring as much as Brandon Aiyuk, who's got a higher Trinity score and a much better offense. He's right on par with Michael Pittman Jr. that we talked about. He is incredible. Go buy Garrett Wilson if you can do that. Incredible freaking player. Doing that on that offense, just phenomenal. But you look at some of the other wide receivers, Chris Olave, Pickens, London, Watson. I mean, the common theme, quarterback play. Just talked about that. George Pickens. For as bad as Garrett Wilson is, Kenny Pickens, his ass is right there. 4th worst QBR in the NFL. There is Kenny Pickett. Whereas, let's look for Derek Carr. Let's just see. Well, there's Jordan Love. 10th worst QBR in the NFL. QBR 46.5. EPA per drop back, barely positive 0.05. So there's Christian Watson, decent Trinity score, awful production. And then we already know Desmond Ridder, bottom 10 in the NFL in QBR, 40.7. Only Fields, Mac Jones, Daniel Jones, Jimmy Garoppolo, those guys ahead of Desmond Ridder, or behind Desmond Ridder, of being awful. So this 22 wide receiver class, Chris Olave is the one that's sort of the one that's shining through, but there's not even a question for me. Like, if I can have one of the two, here it is on the weekly chart, 1 through 10. Give me Garrett freaking Wilson. Look at what he's doing despite this. And Chris Olave's got a nice little higher low trend happening right here. What's this, week 4 and 5? There goes his low points. And then you got week, 6, 7, whenever they had that break. There it is right there. Moving up, got some highs right there. And then in the week 9, or the week before last, he made another low, but it was a higher low than that week 4 and 5 low. So nice little upward trend for Chris Olave. Like, these are two awesome players. If I can have one of the two, it would be Garrett Wilson. But I like the fact that Olave, after a little rocky start, he's making some higher lows, and we're just waiting for some of those higher highs to pop off right now. And maybe that's going to happen with Jameis Winston. Maybe not, but both of these players and the way that they're tracking what they're doing make me excited for their future next season, this season, and beyond. Both these players, phenomenal players. Trinity tells us that. Stay locked in, and both of those guys are going to be okay down the stretch. One of the players who's not okay down the stretch, and it was a fun Trinity find to start out the season because, hell, he helped us out. He helped us out quite a bit with scoring us a bunch of fantasy points. But of late, starting to see that dip. And when you look at it on the weekly comparison chart, it is very, very clear what's happening here. So there's old man Adam Thielen. We want to talk a little bit about Adam Thielen. There's old man Adam Thielen right there through 10 weeks, right there on that wide receiver 2 line. But you see that dot getting closer and closer to that point per game regression line. Still a very solid Trinity score for Adam Thielen, who's getting us. And let me pull it up right now. Let's see what Adam Thielen is scoring us per game. He's giving us 17 points. He's expected right around 17 points. There's no plus minus on this one. He's giving us 17.8, expected 17.5. Trinity score of triple sixes. That is not a good omen right there. 3 6s for Adam Thielen. But check out this weekly Trinity plot. So weeks 1 to 2, boom. If you bought in after week 1, like you were riding a high for multiple weeks with Adam Thielen, setting higher highs, higher highs, higher highs, higher highs. But much like the market, there's always going to be a pullback and regression towards the mean. So he starts to drop down, big time drop, one of his lowest low right before that bye week of the season outside of week 1. And then you see it bump back up just a tad bit. This is one where his target share for Adam Thielen, 25%, Yak 3.6, air yard share, 24.7. Adam Thielen, he did for us what we needed him to do. But right now, the quarterback play in Carolina is dreadful. Bryce Young, just as bad as the Zach Wilsons that we were talking about. He is not good either this season. He's 3rd worst in EPA per dropback. QBR for Bryce Young, where's he at? I probably don't have to go far. A little better than some of the other guys. I mean, it's not good. Derek Carr, not good. Yeah, it's just not good for Bryce Young. I'll just leave it at that. Not good. Completion percentage over expected for Bryce Young. Let's take a look at it. It's not good. So Adam Thielen, pretty simple, common theme. Bad quarterback play, high Trinity. Even though those are the things we want, you got to be a little mindful of that. You got to tread lightly with some of those players. In my opinion, you look at what Adam Thielen has given you throughout the season. He's done his job. He should have positioned you for the cost of acquisition. He didn't cost you anything to get him. He should have positioned you to have a solid little playoff push. Like you should be in a spot to where you feel comfortable enough that, you know, you should be in a good spot to make the playoffs or at least have a competing team with found money at wide receiver. Yeah, Bryce Young, his CPOE, I mean, it's better than Minshew. It's better than Garoppolo, Mac Jones, Kenny Pickett, Jordan Love, and even Josh Dobbs. So it's not good in Carolina, and that's probably why we're seeing this sort of this downward trend from Adam Thielen. So can you pivot off of him? Don't look at Adam Thielen and be like, oh, he had a high Trinity in week 2. I gotta roster him. I can't move off him. No, this is fluid. It's the market. We're trying to play the market. I would be fine moving off of Adam Thielen. And then the final 2 receivers that I want to talk about are Tank Dell and Nico Collins. And we'll start with Nico Collins, and we know he's missed some time. I think his time is running out. I really believe that Nico Collins' time is running out because what Tank Dell and Tank Dell and Noah Brown are doing in this offense, it's going to force him out. You better get it together. Get on the field, because what these other 2 players are doing, and you look at Nico, right? Nico had that popping off early in the season, and in the past couple of games, it's just been a nice downward trend for Nico Collins. And then we flip this thing over and we look at Tank Dell, and yes, he missed some time and there was some volatility there, but he set a higher low, right, a couple of weeks ago. And then he doesn't have a high yet. His high looks like it came in week 3 or week 4 of the season. But there goes his low. He dropped down a little bit today, but that's a higher low for Tank Dell. So is this the start of an end of the season trend where Tank Dell starts to really assume and cement himself as the go-to figurehead in that offense? 14 targets versus Cincinnati Bengals that week. I mean, it's impressive what he's doing with C.J. Stroud and an efficient quarterback. And we just look at this offense right now. There they all are, clustered together. There's Noah Brown. giving you 14.2 with a Trinity of 7.55. Tank Dell, 7.8, 14, almost 15 fantasy points. And then Nico Collins are all right clustered together, but somebody's got to separate from the pack. Somebody's going to have to separate from the pack. It's not going to be Robert Woods or Mechie or Xavier Hutchinson, but that's the cluster right there that we really need to zero in on and focus on for the remainder of the season. And again, this is my favorite tab. This is my favorite tab in the tool because it just allows you to see a little bit of everything. You look at this, and this is 4 games played, right? 4 of their games played. You see the target share is very tight. I mean, 19% for Nico, 20% for Tank Dell, 16% for Noah Brown, 18% for Robert Woods. You see the yak. I mean, Noah Brown absolutely crushing in that category, 9.1. And that's what's holding Nico Collins up. That's that 8 yards after the catch per reception, whereas Tank Dell's more in that average NFL range, right around 3.8. Air yard share for Tank Dell, highest on the team, 30.1. 26.5 for Nico Collins in the games played, and right around 18 for Noah Brown. So when you look at this, I know Noah Brown's scoring us some points. We're excited about it. 3 points over expected. The pecking order, in my opinion, is Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Noah Brown. But Nico, don't keep missing time because Noah Brown's continuing to put good stuff on wax, overproducing by far more than anybody else in this pass catching room. He's the cheapest one. So if you're in a best ball format, wouldn't be bad to grab you some Noah Brown, and you should have done that a couple of weeks ago when I told you to. But yeah, Tank Dell's the guy. That's the guy in this offense right now. All the ancillary metrics are pointing to Tank Dell being the guy. And then when you just look at their Trinity versus points per game, it's pretty clear the trend that Tank Dell is on and going to cement himself as the go-to target in this pass catching room. So there it is. Had a lot of players to discuss this week on Trinity Thursdays. Pop Douglas, old wide receivers, Keenan Allen versus Adam Thielen, how freaking good Garrett Wilson is, why you shouldn't be scared to tear off some of those other wide receivers like the Watson, the Londons, Chris Olave still doing his damn thing, Adam Thielen's tank, the rise of the Tank Dell, and more wide receivers like Michael Pittman Jr. I appreciate y'all being here, tapping in to this Trinity Talk Thursdays, wide receivers opportunity and utilization. Go to DestinationDevy.com. Check out the tool. $9 a month gives you access to the website. You can use the War tool, Trinity Tracker, prospect comparisons tools, and all the dope content that our content creators are putting out at Destination Devy. Hit that thumbs up button, like the content. We are adding new features as we go. There are some other things that we want to incorporate in. I understand there's a big difference between 30% of Desmond Ritter's targets and 26% of targets from Tua Tagovailoa. Give me the 26% from Tua opposed to the 32% from Desmond Ritter. The quality of target absolutely matters. That's why we started to focus a little bit today on some of the quarterback situations, but we're factoring some new things into the tool. We will refine this damn thing, and come next football season, man, it's going to be insane how good the Trinity Tracker is. But I appreciate you being here. Enjoy Thursday Night Football tonight, and make sure y'all wake y'all asses up tomorrow for Wake Up with Ray G, me and Jay Rich, talking through the game previews, fantasy storylines, takeaways, all that good stuff. Enjoy. I'm out. Peace.